Lambing is a very anticipated time for us here on our small little farm every year, and usually Noelle leads the pack, just like she did this year. We came out one morning to find one beautiful, healthy lamb and one very attentive mama, which was a great way to start. Eleanor, who you see on the far right there, is another really wonderful ewe that we have, and she is so large and so ready to go. We spent most of the day today just watching her, knowing that really it was going to be any minute. Alas, the sun set, no lambs, so we carry on. The next morning we woke up, still no lambs, but when we came back from church, we found that Gwen had a set of triplets. Now, triplets aren't incredibly rare with sheep, but they don't happen that often. 2 of her lambs were up and eating and doing very well. They were very fresh when we found them. But a 3rd one was born crippled. And when we pulled into the driveway from church, we found her kind of flopping around in the snow. So I immediately jumped out of the car, grabbed her, wrapped her up in my coat, and took her inside. I don't think that it was anything Gwen did. I think just the way that this 3rd lamb was situated in the womb, her neck and her spine didn't form correctly. When I brought her in, I thoroughly expected for her to not make it. She was really in rough shape. Luckily, I did a once-over on the other 2 lambs. They looked great. They were eating, they were healthy, they were strong. So 2 out of 3 is pretty good, but let's see what we can do for this little 3rd baby. I tried initially after assessing the lamb, who could not stand at all. I tried to get her to latch on because ideally she'll always nurse from the mom. That's the best case scenario. But the way that her spine was formed, we just couldn't get her to latch on. And so I knew that it was going to be up to us to have her inside to care for her and ultimately to feed her. She was very cold when we found her flopping around in the snow. So we brought her in, mixed up some milk replacer, started a fire, and tried to get her as warm and comfortable as we could. Another great idea for lambs when they're kind of struggling like this is to give them what's called a drench. This is kind of like a molasses, sugar syrup, energy, enzyme, just to kind of get them going, give them a little bit of energy, give them a little bit of boost. So we drenched her as much as we could. Okay, so I'm out here with little guy now, and I just gave him some of this colostrum. So ideally, I keep colostrum from our cow. Every time she calves, I milk some out and freeze some so that I have it, but she's been dry for this year. We've used it all. And so this is kind of a nice supplement you can just get at your feed store. Let's see if we can get him to take this bottle. He really wants to eat. We're trying a new nipple. This is called a Pritchard nipple. Just goes on any bottle. And look, he's eager. So let's see. Hang on, Lovey. Ideally, obviously, the mom would just take to the baby. But like with this one, we brought it inside to keep it alive And so now she doesn't want to take it. So one other thing we can try before we submit to having a bottle lamb is actually we can hunt for the afterbirth, which I know sounds really gross. But this is this is Eleanor's afterbirth, and we can actually rub this over the back of the lamb, and hopefully that'll kind of give her senses back, like, hey, this is my baby. So we're gonna try that. Here's our really strong lamb. You can tell the weak lamb. Just look at the size difference. It's really easy, actually, to be angry at the mom when something like this happens. In fact, nothing makes me more angry than watching a mom reject a weak, hey bud, baby. But I don't blame her, because we did have to take the lamb inside. So she didn't see the lamb for, I don't know, maybe 8 hours until we brought it back out. And at that point, we thought it was just going to die. It was so weak. So we had to just keep it by the fire, get it warm, get it enough energy, and get it warm enough that it even could eat. It's just so tricky. It's so tricky to know what to do sometimes. The other thing that's really worth trying with sheep is if you can hold the mom and help the baby to get at least some of the milk, that's really helpful, because if the mom's milk goes through the digestive tract of the lamb, comes out the other end, the mom will actually smell that. You'll notice that sheep really tend to smell the bottoms of their lambs. And if they smell their milk in the bottom, then they think, oh, this is mine, and it's all good. So it's worth tying them up sometimes and going through that wrestling match, because that can sometimes work too. So we've been trying that as well. I'm going to feed them now, see if I can get Eleanor to stand still for a little bit while she eats. We'll give that a go. It's been a really interesting lambing year here on the farm. Typically our 3 ewes will start the end of December and take about 6 weeks to finish. They're sort of stretched out. Well, this year they all went within 36 hours of each other. As soon as it started, they all just went. And I'd like to say that it was all smooth sailing, but that's just never how it goes on the farm. And actually, in all the years that we've had lambs, this has probably been the trickiest year that we've ever dealt with, for a few reasons. So the first ewe to lamb was Noelle, and she just had one single lamb, and that was fine. That was a great start. The next ewe to lamb was Gwen, and she had triplets. That happened when we were at church. So we came home and we found 2 really healthy lambs on the ground, and then we found the last one to be born, which is this little crippled lamb that you see here. So this little crippled lamb that you see next to me here, she hasn't ever stood up. Her spine didn't grow, correct? Probably because she's a triplet, and probably because ewes do best with twins. Not only do they have obviously 2 nipples for nursing, but just their body works better with twins than with triplets. So we came home from church. It was a cold day, and we found this little sweetie flopping on the ground. So this little girl's been working super hard. We immediately brought her inside. This is actually an incredible improvement. She was really cold. She'd been left out in the snow, and I don't think that Gwen meant to. It was just she couldn't stand up. I mean, what's a ewe going to do? So we brought her in, put her by the fire. She's been living in my kitchen for the last 3 days, which means pretty much around the clock, bottle feeding, typically around every 4 hours. This is just like a milk replacer that you can get from a feed store. And it's really tricky with farm animals like this, because in the wild, an animal that's like this, that has a disability, that can't function like the rest of the herd, isn't going to make it. The weak animals are the ones that are picked off by predators, or that are just really susceptible to different diseases. But this little girl has such heart. She can't really lift her head, but she really is a great eater, and she has so much fight in her that I sort of told myself I won't give up on her until she sort of gives up. And I've thought that that's going to happen a few times. I'm really surprised that she's still here. But now we bring her out during the day so she can be in the sunshine, she can be with the other animals, and she's trying to stand. So whether or not she'll ever be able to, I don't know. We're just kind of playing it by ear at this point. But I mean, having a crippled animal has definitely added a ton of time to an already full spring schedule here on the farm. And then there's this little guy. My friend Natalie named him Tiny Tim. So our last ewe to lamb was Eleanor, and she also had triplets, and he was also the last one out. And I don't really know what's going on with him. He's just small and he's weak, and he's also been living in the house for the last 3 days. So he does fairly well when we bring him out here. When it's a nice day, it's warm enough that he doesn't get too cold. But I'm really surprised that he's still here as well. You can tell he's not strong. He's not super healthy. If you notice, his back is sort of arched. He holds his head kind of low. His ears are droopy. If you contrast that with a really healthy lamb, you'll notice just the overall posture is a lot different. This little guy also had a problem eating for the first few days. He could only really take in a super small amount of milk before he would start gagging. So he's made a lot of improvements. He's like a little puppy now, really. Oh, you're trying so hard, aren't you, love? So 4 super healthy lambs on the ground, 2 that need quite a bit of help, and then 1 stillborn lamb, unfortunately. So not great odds in the lambing department this year, but you know, that's really the way that it goes with farming. And I've been thinking a lot about this, actually, because when you're faced with potentially having to put an animal down or having to face some difficult circumstances, it presents a lot of challenges for the farmer. These are animals that we have cared for, watered, and fed every single day, year-round, rain or shine, holidays, vacations, you name it. They have to be taken care of. They take priority. So you put all that effort in with the hopes of getting a crop from that herd every year, right? And being able to harvest something from it. And it's really an act of hope that that's going to happen because it doesn't always go to plan. And really this is no different than the gardener who every year plants broccoli and every year it gets taken by cabbage moths, or putting all the effort into a garden and having a hailstorm come through. You kind of, when you live close to nature like this, when you're aware of the sunshine and the snowfall and the rain and birthing difficulties even, you're aware of it all. You know that stuff is going to come. There's really no way through the farming or homesteading experience without facing, frankly, a lot of disappointment. So in facing this disappointment, it's actually got me thinking, what is it that keeps us going on these times when it would make a lot more sense to quit? I think as a homesteader, you have to live with a lot of hope. Hope that you're going to gain knowledge, hope that things are going to be better next year, hope that things will carry on and be worth it in the long haul. And ultimately it is. You know, you get to experience these really beautiful things, and they might be hard things, but they're still worth experiencing, you know, almost like a reminder that you're alive and you have a lot to be thankful for. So hard as the last few days have been, I'm grateful for it. I've been sharing a little bit of these lambs' stories over on Instagram, and I keep getting asked the question, what happened to the mom? Why did the mom reject them? And sadly, in nature, mothers can be very cruel. And so when they sense that something is wrong, oftentimes they just abandoned the baby, which is a bit of a challenge. Now, when you have a lamb outside and let's say it's cold or there's an injury, it's really difficult to know where that line is of, if I bring that lamb inside and I start bottle feeding it, the mom will reject it. The longer that the lamb's away, taking in different milk. It doesn't smell like her anymore. It'll just create further separation between the mom and the baby. And so we always try to keep them united as long as possible, bring the lamb out, get it to latch on, get it to take in some of the milk. Sometimes that just doesn't happen. And so ideally, you can keep the mother-baby bond, but unfortunately, in nature, that's just not the way that it goes. The mom will often just reject them. She'll butt them with her head. She won't let them nurse, and they're kind of left to die. So if you have animals and you're not sure, just walk the fine line. And I mean like hour by hour. This hour, what's the best decision that I can make to keep this lamb alive? And that's changing, and you never really know. I really genuinely did not expect them to make it for these 3 days. So I'm happy. I wish, obviously, that they were nursing on their moms and really healthy, but we're taking what we can get here. All right, let's talk a little bit about the things that went right with lambing this year, or at least the things that are going well right now in the sheep herd. So this is our new ram. We named him Zeus. And he's actually of our own breeding stock. He beat out our alpha that we had last year. Unfortunately, that was a bit dramatic, but he's here now and he's shaping up really beautifully. He's really hulked up over the winter months. He's looking good. He's very kind. You always have to be cautious of a male animal that's intact. Always be aware of where they are and what they're doing, because they're a little bit unpredictable. But as far as rams go, he reminds me a lot of our old ram Hamish, who was absolutely amazing and gentle and fabulous. So we're glad to have him now. We do have to replace all of our breeding ewes this year. So this is kind of their last hurrah, and then we'll be bringing in some completely new bloodlines and breeding a whole new group of ewes next year. We did have really beautiful coloring on our lambs this year as well. So these are Katahdin sheep. These are a hair sheep. They do not grow wool, and you do not have to shear them. They're really delicious. The lamb is absolutely fabulous eating, which is why we raise them. We raise them exclusively for meat. But even still, in the Katahdin world, it's all about the different colors that you can get. And we have a really beautiful array of lambs this year. So I'm really happy about that. This ewe right here is actually Eleanor. And she was a bottle lamb that we brought to our farm 7.5 years ago. So she's been with us for quite a while, and I spent a lot of time feeding her when she was a baby. I have to show you guys this. I finally created a little contraption for my little crippled lamb. Check it out. You guys, she is standing all on her own. I put a little box over here so that she can't flop over, and she kind of leveraged against the side of the crate. This has taken 1 week of rehab to get to this point. This is amazing, and she is working so hard. You're doing such a good job, love. You're doing such a good job. Yeah. Good job. I can't believe it. Sweetie. Rexy, you're like a giant billboard in front of them.
Okay, down here. Some too.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute. What milk is in here? So I guess the moral of the story is that it's worth holding out hope that sometimes things will work out. Better than you expected.